Hi there, I hope you've had a good day. I know I did because I spent most of it writing. This video will be a little longer than the rest of the videos because today I will be helping you transform your idea into a story just in 3 steps. It might get a bit technical, so brace yourself. Now let's say that you've got a story or an idea and you don't know what to do with it. I don't blame you because ideas usually, especially story ideas, are like snowflakes. When we say it's snowing, what does it actually mean? It means that tiny ice crystals are falling down and then accumulating in a single place, becoming what is called a snowflake. And ultimately, when these snowflakes start accumulating, they start seeming like snow. Yeah, I think I got a bit carried away. But just imagine that a story idea is actually a snowflake, a singular snowflake. And as long as you don't develop it with more snowflakes, it will melt into tiny drops of water, invisible to the naked eye. It'll disappear. So the most important thing for you to do right now is to write it down. Write it down on a piece of paper. I would recommend writing it on a piece of paper because when you write it or type it on a phone, usually a notification from your Instagram or something really disturbs the flow. So it's better to write it down on a piece of paper or a register or a notebook rather than a device, say a laptop or a phone, because a single notification can easily kill your snowflake. So now you wrote it on paper. If you did, then just know that I'm low-key proud of you. The first step is done, and that was the most important one. Now what do? Ideas don't just magically become movies or scripts or even novels, right? Tighten your seatbelts, bro, because now we'll be transforming this little snowflake you've got in a jar into a mother-clucking snowstorm. Basically a story. Let me make it clear, this is phase 1, and phase 1 is all about writing a story. And then in phase 2, maybe you can worry about making that story into a script or writing a book with it, or let's say a short story or a poem, whatever you want. Though my experience lies more with film, so I might be a tad bit biased towards that, but don't let that worry you right now. Just don't malign your little snowflake just yet. Story. Right. What's the next step? For the next step of this phase 1, I want you to grab a notebook right now. I'll wait for you if you haven't. Hopefully you have a notebook or a page in front of you. Now grab a pen. Don't make me wait again, man. Just pause the video. Done. Good. So did I. And we're good to go. On that piece of paper, write down 8 things. First, your hero or heroine in the beginning of the story. Second, what do they want? Third, what is stopping them from getting it? Fourth, their allies, if any. Fifth, their enemies, if any. Next is their one core belief. After that, the truth that they will discover. And finally, the hero or heroine in the end of the story. Manageable? Simple? Cool. Now let me explain these things to you. Before we proceed, I just want to let you know that if stories flow naturally through you and you don't like to worry yourself with these details, you can skip right to section 3, which will be at this timestamp. Cool? Okay. But on the other hand, if you do need help, let's define these 8 things for you. So, the first one, your hero. How are they at the beginning of the story? Are they sad? Do they get bullied at school? Just think about it. What does your hero look like? What does he feel? What does he go through? Just these small things. Feel free to take any inspiration from your own life or lives of other people that are close to you. What is the one thing that they want? Do they want to take the prettiest girl to prom? Or maybe defeat the bullies in a basketball match? Think. Now what's exactly stopping them from getting what they want? For instance, their parents might tell them to turn the other cheek, be the bigger person, and that stops them from taking a stand against the bullies. Okay, now their allies, as in the people that will help them in the journey. Does your hero have any friends who will help him in his journey? Maybe, maybe not. Think about it. Do they have enemies? That's the next one. Now, enemies are usually the people who stop the hero from getting what they want. The enemies are usually a vehicle to deliver the third point, which is what's stopping them from getting what they want. Now, their core belief. What do they believe in? It can be one thing, it can be multiple things. I prefer to have just one, and I would recommend if you're starting out just to have one core belief. what would it be? Let's say your hero lost his father to a mugging because his father tried to fight back against the criminal. And so now your hero believes in not taking a stand, believes in non-violence. Next comes the truth that they will discover. This usually contradicts the core belief, but not always. Again, if you're starting out, I would recommend that you make it exactly contradicting to the one thing that they believe in. So let's say that your hero believes in non-violence. So the truth that they'll discover should be something like taking a stand for yourself. The last thing, your hero in the end, how is he or she? Are they confident now? Do they not get bullied anymore? Do they now have the courage to ask the prettiest girl to prom? Good, fantastic. Now we're done with step 2 of phase 1, and you would have a better idea of what your story looks like or might look like when you start writing it. When you're writing these things, do not forget the idea that you started with, the one sentence or a page that you wrote in the beginning. Now this is done, but you still need a playground to maximize your fun when you're writing the story. More fun comes from more conflict, and when the stakes seem realer and closer. Okay, get that pen ready again. So now we're gonna draw a big plus sign on a sheet of paper. I didn't know you sketched too, bro. Good job. And we'll divide it into 4 quadrants. Any story that you write will fall into one of these 4 quadrants. On the left hand side, write universal. Below that, not universal. On top left, write necessary. On top right, write unnecessary. So now you've got 4 quadrants. So these are Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4. Q1 is where things are true and universal, but also necessary. Like, let's say the earth is round. I really hope you do believe that the earth is round. Please, all the flat earthers, stay away from this channel. Thank you. Q2 is where things are true and universal, but not necessary. That is, not necessary for everyone to believe in. For instance, your achievements, successes, failures will not exactly matter when once you're on your deathbed, and that's a truth. But that's still a truth that not many of us accept. Some people do, but not all of us, because if we did accept that, we would stop running, we would stop trying to achieve those things. So it is a truth that not all of us think is that important to be reminded of constantly. Q3 is where things are necessarily true, but not universal. We can include geopolitical issues here. For instance, what may be true for one country may not be true for another. Fast rising population may be true to one country, let's say Nigeria, whereas extremely slow rise in population will be true for some country like Bulgaria. You get my point, right? What applies to Bulgaria here does not apply to Nigeria, and what applies to Nigeria does not apply to Bulgaria. Q4 are truths that are neither universal nor necessary. The things that are true to us. Now, distance yourself from this sheet. Where do you see the most disagreement here? In which quadrant? Where do you see the most conflict? Which one is the most interesting? Q1 is hands down where zero disagreement lies. It is something we all know, agree with and acknowledge. And when there are no disagreements, it becomes a bit boring, right? So I call it the bore zone. I usually try to keep my stories away from here, though you don't have to, because it's just my opinion. I personally dislike documentaries. I apologize because I kind of sleep through most of them, but let me bring a filmic example. So any of you remember Dante's Peak, the 1997 film with Pierce Brosnan, James Bond? So the plot is that Pierce Brosnan goes to a countryside town, and that town is home to a volcano called Dante's Peak, and everyone knows that that volcano might erupt anytime. So we all know there's one thing that volcanoes are extremely good at, and that is erupting, and it is humanly impossible to stop one from erupting. Why would we exactly follow our character into a town where we know that the volcano is gonna erupt at the end? There is conflict, but it is quite dull here, because we know it, we acknowledge it, we agree with it, and we expect it. I personally believe that Q2, Q3, Q4 are good quadrants to place your story at. Make it more interesting and have fun with it. Unless you're trying to make a documentary, then maybe count me out. In my opinion, Q2, where the truth is universal but unnecessary, is a good place to put your slice of life dramas, like coming of age films, for instance, Manchester by the Sea, Lost in Translation, all those things, where your character realizes an important truth that other people may run away from. For instance, death, or maybe marriages end sometime. Q3 is where a lot of opinionated films come from. Political dramas, financial dramas like Big Short, all those kind of films, which is true to a certain organization or a certain group of people. Q4 is my favorite because it's personal, because it's neither universal nor necessary to believe in this truth. Not for everyone. It is where I can use my own experiences and my own imagination based on my own experiences that I've had in my life to create whatever I want. Whiplash was one such film because Damien Chazelle based it on his experiences as a music student. I can write about how bad film school is for you because I've been to it and I've lived it. Now that we've discussed the 4 quadrants, you get to decide where you can create the most conflict at, the more stakes at, and the more freedom you can give yourself to play. There it is. You have your characters, you have their wants, you have what's stopping them from getting it, you have the playground that they'll play at. You are ready to turn that idea into a story now. Sit up straight, shoulders back, chin up, and smile. And don't forget that it's always about a story.